All right, well, thank you all so much for coming. Super nervous, but this is going to be great. I've invited you guys here to hear about a course that I've been doing. I've done an online course for about 8 weeks. The course is called, this one is Module 5 through WEC International, and it's called Offering Healing and Hope for Children in Crisis. It's actually Crisis Care Training International, the curriculum that they came out with. They have several modules. The first module I've already taken, which is Offering Healing and Hope for Children in Crisis. It was about it's a 15-lesson, 8-week course that I did online through Facebook. And WEC International offers this for anybody to take it. You can download different things like the PDF, the book. I got online because I'm overseas. But once you've done the modules, and then you've done Module 5, which is called Train the Trainer. After you've done that, you have the ability and the freedom to train other people in the same information, printing off the information for them. And so what makes this exciting, and what I'm so excited for about this, is that then it's helping me to use this information in the ministry that God has called Ron and I. And so let me open with a word of prayer, and then we can continue on. Lord, we thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. Thank you for my friends that have given their 20 to 30 minutes to hear just a part of what I've been learning in the last almost 16 weeks, part of Module 1 and also through Module 5, learning how to present information that is key and that is important to help children who have gone through trauma, through crisis, that we can bring your healing and your hope to them. So we pray that you just be with me and the words that I have to say and the information comes across to really understand what is the goal for today. So I just thank you for that, Lord Jesus, and I commit this time to you. In your name we pray. Amen. So first I want to start off with just a saying by the Nobel Peace Prize winner Nelson Mandela. Children are the most vulnerable citizens in any society and the greatest of our treasures. This training, again, is to give you information on how can we help children who have gone through different situations in their lives. When we think of trauma, sometimes we think of trauma as something that's extreme, like children who just went through the hurricane in the United States. But trauma can be changing schools. It could be parents getting a divorce. That's the kind of trauma also that we can deal with in a very specific way. But what I really want to focus on this morning too is Jesus' perspective of taking care of kids. Isaiah 40:11 says, "Like a shepherd he will tend his flock. In his arm he will gather the lambs and carry them in his bosom. He will gently lead the nursing ewes." And one thing that was, through this course, we've been reading a book called Healing for Hurting Hearts by the lady who created this course, called Phyllis Kilborn. Her ministry is expansive. She's been working with kids who have gone through trauma in war, natural disasters, and things like that. So in this particular book, I just wanted to read, because this perspective is coming from a spiritual point of view. Also a physical point of view, but also a spiritual point of view. Because there's many people out there that will deal with children in psychology, counseling. It's great, but if we don't have Jesus as the center of this, we can still bring children to healing. But wow, how powerful it is to have God's love and His healing. And just wanted to read one part of the book that is really key before we go on to a specific part. It says, "The key to spiritual healing is applying God's truth to lives. Unfortunately, trauma and crisis cause people to disbelieve God and His truth. Overcoming this barrier is essential to spiritual healing." And another thing, when we're talking about kids, sexual abuse is one of the key components a lot of times when we're ministering to children. Sexual abuse is especially devastating to a child's concept of who God is. In particular, incest by fathers and the father figures damages the child's ability to understand God as a loving father. The fatherhood of God is an essential part of His nature and a powerful part of His healing and redeeming relationship with us. And we're talking about dealing with children. This person brings up this point, which I thought was so powerful. We cannot begin with the image of God as a father to these children because the negative associations that fatherhood carries for them translate to lies about God's true character. Instead, we must start with an image that is not rooted in their brokenness. Once they are able to understand God's character in that non-threatening image, we can help them bridge those qualities to the image of God as the good father. The image of God as a good shepherd can provide that bridge. In Scripture, each member of the Trinity is compared with many roles: comforter, advocate, judge, and king, just to name a few. One comparison that is especially helpful for children and youth in crisis is that of a shepherd. So that's where I think it was amazing, because I thought, well, when she first said that, like, we can't, say God as a father. But as she began to relate all these different things about how children have seen their father in a role that is unhealthy, that has been broken, that has hurt them, to present them, oh, God is your father, they're not going to be able to accept that. And to say a shepherd, the shepherd is the first to see the lamb at its birth, and not one day goes by but he visits it. So needful and merciful a work it is that it has no Sabbath. But as on the day of rest, the shepherd feeds his own children, so he cares for the lambs of his flock, sees that no harm is befalling them, remembers their dependence on him, observes their growth, and removes that what hinders them. And again, in the same way that a shepherd cares for sheep, God cares for children and youth. So I thought that was an amazing and a powerful example that we can bring to these kids as we sit down with them and talk with them about the love of Jesus. So what we want to talk about is children and loss, just really quick, because to understand who we're dealing with. There's different things that happen in a child's life, again, that we sometimes think is just very, very minimal, but this is what they're experiencing. Whether it be protection and safety in their home, physical losses, emotional losses, sense of belonging. Again, you go from one school that you knew and then you're transferred to another school. That is a loss from friends. Trust, whether it be in adults or other authority figures in their life, whether it be teachers or parents. Personal losses, possessions, innocence. Again, like in a hurricane, you lost everything from your home. How is that child going to deal with that? Vital structures, significant and attachment figures in their lives, professors, teachers, parents. Meaningful childhood, exploited, basic necessities, moral development, and education. Understanding these cycle helps us because it says in here, violence refers to any act that hurts a child, especially those acts that result in emotional loss, such as war, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or abandonment. So again, here they're just focusing on some very specific and heavy losses. But if you go back here, these are things that sometimes we think, oh, yeah, this can create trauma in a child's life and loss that they don't know how to deal with. And hope, of course. So what we're going to do today, to begin with, is a warm-up activity. Because what I'm going to be focusing on, we'll go back to that, has to do with organized play therapy. So I have these things on the table here. So what I want you to do is look at the things. You have dolls, Play-Doh, some little things to color, and some Legos. Is choose something, just for a few minutes, if you're going to make something or whatever, and hold on to it, that would represent something in your childhood, something either that made you feel secure, or at that moment, maybe you experienced something in your life that was traumatic, or a loss that you experienced that would help you represent those things. You understand? Does that make sense? Or even just something from your child, like for me, I would choose Play-Doh because I used to play Play-Doh with my brother all the time. So that in a sense would be the activity that would bring me back to my child. So take a few minutes and figure out what would be something that would represent for you. You have to think through it.
Yeah. I was looking at that too, but I lost my notes.
Okay. And notice that within this activity, I'm not telling you what to choose, but I'm giving you pointers on something that would direct you to a specific object, that would remind you, oh, this is what I experienced, or I remember doing this, or my brother and sister used to do that. So that's just a small aspect of what we're going to be talking about.
So I'm gonna sit down. Colors here.
While you guys are doing this, I'm going to go on to this next and you can keep doing that or even just hold on to it. And what we're going to focus on today is called the stop model. And we're just going to be focusing on one part of this. But a principal feature of the trauma is a sense of feeling vulnerable and out of control. So a child who, they don't know what's going on, there's no way for them to control it. I was talking about with somebody the other day is that when a child wants to come to visit our meetings at the Kazulu cocoon, well, sometimes they wouldn't come and they'd be like, oh, why didn't they come? Well, sometimes as children, 12, 13 years old, they don't have control of their life. A stepmom is telling them what to do, their dad is telling them what to do, they have to take care of their sister's kids all day long, then stop that, try to get to school, then come home, cook dinner. They have no control of their life. And everything that they're experiencing in that moment, they feel out of control. And so one of the primary purposes of therapy or counseling through this model is to help accomplish the goal of understanding that fear, understanding that sadness, providing them ways to work through those feelings, and also to stop the devastating process of chaos, strengthening the factors that through intervention we can stop these things and begin a new structure in their life. And so the first one is structure, which is represents the children's need for interventions that provide structure in their life. That's why, like with coming to a community center, kind of like Boas Novas, coming to a community center once a week or one time every day, they know they're going to get a snack, they know they're going to hear about the Word of God, and they know that they're going to be there for a couple of hours. It's structure. That's what they need. The next one is talking in time. This one talks about just being able, it's beginning to talk with them about what they're experiencing. Okay? The next one we're going to be focusing on is organized play. But the parental support, this is also a very difficult part to focus on because sometimes the parents are not even in their life. Or if they are, it's a stepfather, a stepmother, which already there's that distinction between, oh, well, that's not really my mom, that's not really my dad. So we're going to come back to O, which is organized play. And that's what, even as we were doing this, looking at these different aspects of Play-Doh, Legos, children and play. The play is a process of development in a child, and play is also the developmental language of a child's world. Therefore, traumatized children need a safe place to play, an opportunity to play, things to play with. Healthy children play well. We think this is so easy, a safe place to play, but you know, it's not. They're in the street playing, not a safe place. An opportunity to play. No, they're 12 years old standing at the stove cooking for 10 people that live in their home. These are the situations that we're talking about here in Sao Paulo. Of course, every situation, whether it be in the United States, will have different structures of their home life. And so it depends on where you're at and who you're ministering to at that moment. Things to play with. Almost obsolete. Children don't have a soccer ball to play with. They don't have Legos to play with. Their dolls, they may have one or two, but they've just been used by 500 people. They're not looking as good as these dolls. Research has shown that if children can play well, they will also be able to adjust as adults. Because what happens, and this is an amazing thing about about trauma is that, let's give a scenario of an 11-year-old that has gone through trauma, whether it be sex trafficking, sexual violence. Their brain physiologically stops growing. It retreats back, it goes into a survival mode. So let's say that child, the scenario is that child's in sex trafficking, she's rescued at age 13. Well, at age 11, she was playing with the Barbie doll. She was sitting down and coloring. At age 13, for the last 2 years, she's been doing stuff that women do in life that this child should never have done. That child's been on survival mode for 2 years. When that child is rescued and they begin to do organized play, they begin sitting down and just, they almost retreat back to what they shouldn't be doing that. They're 13, they shouldn't be playing with dolls at 11, but that's where their brain stopped growing. So to give them an opportunity where they begin to, it's relaxing, it is safe, it's a safe environment, it's toys that they didn't have, and it begins to bring out certain aspects of, they're reenacting certain things within that play. Some of the play activities with organized play is to be instruments of healing for hurting children. Caregivers, and that's who we are, we're caregivers, whether it be to our kids or to kids that come into our home, whether it be kids that, that we are doing ministry with. Caregivers must enter the child's world through play. Talking and having a lecture, they're not going to get it. Sitting down on the floor, playing with them. Organized play entails purposeful, guided play that involves keen observation of what is being acted out and a sensitive interpretation. So it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. Maybe it's one child that we're working with and they sit down and they begin to play with the dolls, but it's these two are fighting and this person is alone, and as you talk with them, you're just playing with them. You're not asking questions like, okay, now what is she doing? Now why is she mad? That comes later on. At the beginning, you just sit and play with them. See what they're going to do. See if they pick up Legos and make a house. Maybe they'll pick up the Play-Doh and do something different. To represent what is up here and what is in here. Because and a lot of times, organized play is really good for ages 3 and up. Because they can't verbalize what they've experienced. It also helps to understand what they're feeling, whether it be pain, inner conflict, or rage, and also what they believe of what happened in the trauma. Because their perspective of the trauma may be obviously different than what we think. There's details in there that we will never know. But as time goes on and they begin to trust, those little things will come out, and then we can begin to minister the love of Jesus to them. And one of the things through organized play, they have different forms of that play. But okay, before we get to play activities, provide children with an outlet to express their feelings through play rather than words. That was what we just talked about. Because drawing a picture or painting, you can begin to see what is really going on in their heart. Caregivers with opportunities to observe the children's play and learn what the children are thinking, feeling, and believing. Again, the same, because we can come in with a little bit of information. Oh, this child lives with a family of 10 people. This child only goes to school twice a week. They don't eat every day. And there's a lot of different information that is great that we bring in with us when we sit with that child. But there's so much information that they're going to bring to the table that we had no idea what was going on. But it takes time. It doesn't come out just like that. And some kids, if they're able to express, not only through their drawings and Play-Doh and all that kind of stuff, they can speak, a lot more will come out. But only until they feel safe. And only until they know it's a secure place. Nobody's going to judge me. Nobody's going to hit me. Nobody's going to care what I say. This person really loves me. I trust them. And that takes time. What I love about these different types of activities is there's just so many that you can use. And again, a lot of these are geared more towards younger ages, but as we get into even like music, there's a lot of things that we can do to working with adolescents as well. Callie knows a lot about this, role play and drama, the psychodrama workshops that she's done. I still need to learn. Amazing, because they can act out things that they have a hard time voicing. Art, again, painting, drawing, doing sculpture, sports. Some kids, they just need to get their energy out, and through that confidence, through a trainer that loves them, kids that they can trust, begin to feel healing because they're being a kid again. They're doing things that they should have been doing probably 2 years ago or a year ago. Music. I love music in so many different ways. I don't sing very well, but hey, I love to listen to it, the words, the music. Done a little bit of research on some of the classicals that actually, because of the notes that are played, it enters in part of their mind that just begins to bring healing. That can only be God. That can only be His amazing wisdom to give man to write this piece of music for healing in a person's heart and their mind. Playroom, we'll talk about that in a minute. Creating a playroom that is secure, safe, an environment where they can just come in and choose whatever they want to play with. A sand tray, I love this because I remember in our house, this again, talking about childhood memories, things that you bring up in your past and say, okay, this made me feel good. My parents made a little sand pit in the back. I spent hours with my twin brother playing in the sand. And it was, nobody had to talk. We were just playing our little thing, making a river, and then there's a tower, and amazing because it's so relaxing. So just talking about organized play, what are the benefits of organized play? Child-centered play activities is one of the most popular ways to help children recapture what was taken away from them, including this, again, taken away from them. We don't think about that with our own kids. But this is taken away from kids. They're not playing. They're not enjoying life. They're worried about things that only adults should be worrying about. Giving them a sense of control. Again, what I said, even with the warm-up activity, you got to choose what you want to do. You're not told, do this, choose that, make that. This is a part where they can be in control. It gives them a sense of power, which has been taken away. Safety. They can do it and they know they're not going to get in trouble. Trust in adults. I think this is a huge thing. Who should be protecting these kids? Adults. And it's the adults that are taking advantage of them. It's the adults that are injuring them, taking their innocence. Bringing this back into their life is huge. And hope. I always forget this, it comes at the very end, but hope actually should be at the top. Hope that I can even accomplish anything in life, other than what I've been told to do. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about kids in situations where the control and the power have been taken away from them, even as just as a little kid. When I tell Emily, who's 7 years old, go pick out what you want to wear for tomorrow. I don't tell her what to wear. I give her the ability to go in, choose her clothes. Now, if they are really unmatched, then of course I have to say something. Well, maybe, a suggestion, maybe you can change that. But it gives her a sense of control. I get to choose what I get to wear when I walk out of this house. Otherwise, they're being told what to do and how to do it. So what I want to do real quick, and this is almost at the end here, is read this story. It's a case study, and it's actually it is a true story that Phyllis Kilbourne wrote down, and this is a girl that she knew in Africa. After I read this, I put it up on here so that you can at least kind of read along. I didn't want to print it out because it was way too little. But this will give you a sense of what kind of kids that organized play can help, and then we're going to talk about it at the end. So it's kind of a long hair thing. Rod, you don't have to focus in on this. It says, Mary, a 12-year-old African girl, belonged to a poor family. However, she loved being a part of a happy family that included her 3 younger siblings and their family pet dog, Snookers. The family did lots of fun things together, especially during family gatherings and at holiday times. Although poor, Mary knew that she was loved and that her parents were doing their best to provide her with the basic necessities. Her friends envied her when her parents allowed her to go to school and took her to church. Then Mary experienced such sadness. Her father, whom she loved deeply, was shot dead in a random drive-by shooting. She could not make sense out of why this had happened. He hadn't hurt anyone. She tried to console her siblings, but they all wished their dad were still with the family. Shortly after the death of Mary's father, her mother remarried. Mary thought maybe she could be happy again, having a father to love and protect her. However, her stepfather, instead of taking over the caring and protective role of her father, began to abuse Mary sexually. All Mary's joyful childhood memories were erased in a moment. This abuse brought great shame to Mary. She felt somehow she must be to blame for her stepfather's behavior. She dreaded coming home from school or the market, especially if her mother was not there. Mary finally found enough courage to tell her mother about the abuse. She felt she must protect her younger siblings. She also was sure her mother would help her bring the abuse to an end. Her mother, however, refused to believe Mary's story. Instead, her mother laughed and said that Mary was just jealous to see her happy again. She told Mary not to mention this anymore. Once again, Mary felt very confused and lonely. If her mother wouldn't believe her, who would? Finally, Mary felt she could not endure one more humiliating experience. The only way for her to escape would be to leave home. Having made the decision to leave, Mary packed up her few possessions, took some of her parents' money, and with tears shut the door on her once happy childhood home. She was filled with guilt and sadness, leaving her siblings at the mercy of their stepfather. Would they too be abused and violated? She felt so helpless, knowing her siblings were too young to leave their mother. Besides, she didn't know how she could even care for herself. She felt very afraid. Before long, Mary ran out of money. She was so hungry and felt very lonely. Mary also felt afraid, especially at night when she had nowhere to sleep but in an abandoned building, at the railroad station, or in a hidden alleyway. During the night, she often heard shootings which reminded her of that fatal night when her father died. She wondered if she too would meet the same fate. Mary quickly learned that a young runaway girl could earn a living on the street in only one way, by selling her body. To cope with the emotional pain of serving several customers each night, most of whom were also physically abusive, Mary began to sniff glue. When Mary had some money, she would also buy whatever drugs were available. The drugs and glue eased her hunger and some of the emotional pain. But every night was yet another humiliating experience from which she had tried so hard to run away. After 6 months of working the streets, fending for herself, and trying to keep out of the sight of the law, Mary was picked up by the police and placed in a detention home for runaway delinquents. She refused to tell the police her name or address. She never wanted to experience her father's abuse again. Maybe here she would be safe. However, her dreams of freedom from sexual abuse were shattered when a warden came into her room in the middle of the night. Who could she call for help? Who would believe her story? Her mother didn't. Would anyone else? Soon the older boys in the detention center also began abusing her. When that happened, Mary lost hope that she would ever be truly loved and protected again. Not only did Mary lose hope of feeling loved, cared for, or respected, she also knew others would now consider her, quote, damaged goods. No one would ever want her again. Mary was not surprised when she learned she had contracted AIDS. Realizing she had no one to care for as she confronted death, she stated, "I might as well die. No one would ever want me anyway." Besides, death would free her from the humiliating abuse that only kept escalating. So after reading this story and learning more about what it is to sit down with a traumatized child, whether it be through organized play, we had to figure out within our training, how could we minister to this girl? If this is a girl that we came upon, this is her story, what could we do? Well, number one, obviously, is begin pray. Pray for wisdom. How do I minister to this girl? She's 12 years old. She's not a little girl. She can verbalize what's gone on in her life. What can we do then to begin bring healing to her? And so the learning activity at the very end of this, as we wrap up, is what would be some age-appropriate activities to try with Mary? How can you identify which forms of organized play may best connect with Mary to help in her healing process? And I just put some little pictures up here. We talked about music, sand play, or I put Play-Doh, art, sports, drama, and the playroom, which again is a safe environment. And one thing you have to think about is she's 12 years old. She's not a little girl, she's not a little, but basically her childhood was robbed of her. She probably didn't have time to play. Finding out what are the things that she likes, what are the things that she misses. But as you guys look at this, and as you've heard this story, and as you've seen the, I want to ask you why you picked what you did. What are some things that come to your mind of one thing from organized play that we talked about that would begin to help you identify or sit with Mary and begin working through some of the things of her childhood? And any thoughts from this?
I think having her walk into the playroom first and just watching her reaction, she's got a few choices.
and then I think whatever she picks, we can identify the age, because she might be 12, but what
Right.
is the age
Exactly.
that she wants to return to,
Right.
where she has lost her child?
Exactly. That's excellent.
I probably would do art with her, I think.
Mhm.
I think there's so much that you can do, you know, to help her through art, to get her to draw things, or paint, or just be able to put down on paper her anger or her sadness. Or
Exactly. Right. Or it gives her an opportunity to put on paper, but not necessarily talk about it.
Yeah.
And plus, we don't know if she ever even likes sports. Was she ever given an opportunity to play anything? We don't know. She's with her siblings. I like that the drama, like what you do, Callie, and with psychodrama is being able to kind of put yourself in a different place and be able to act that out and figure out how that person would view you or vice versa. And again, because of her age, we don't know. This abuse could have happened way further. I mean, it says that she's 12, but what are her likes even as she's going into being an adolescent? You know, what are her dreams? What are the things that she wants to do in life? And so, I'll just leave that up there for right now. But basically, that's a presentation just about what organized play is. It's very specific in a sense that you're using items, toys, things like we said in the playroom, to connect with the child. Again, understanding what their age is, understanding a little bit about the trauma of what they've gone through. Because you can enter a room and be with a kid, but if you have no prior knowledge to some of the situations that surrounds them, it's really difficult. It takes a while because they're not going to speak about it. So even like the Casulo, the cocoon therapeutic sessions that I've been doing for the last 14 weeks, is one girl, she just caught my attention. Her name is Taina, and I just, every time she walked in the room, I just felt heavy. I felt like she came in with such sadness. So I finally started asking, who is this girl? Where's she coming from? And she's the one I gave the example is that she takes care of all her nieces and nephews, and she's 12 years old. She cooks, she cleans. Her stepmother tells her what to do and when to do it. I don't even know if she goes to school. So she comes in heavy. What? Because she's playing? She's not with her. And if she's with her friends, she's probably on the outside looking them playing, if they're playing. 3 weeks ago, she said, oh, will you pray for my little, I keep thinking in Portuguese, sobrinha, niece, she's sick. 2 weeks later, the little girl is still sick, a fever for 2 weeks. So I went to the people and I said, listen, something needs to be done. What's going on? Well, the little girl's mother is pregnant with her third or fourth kid from a father that was just assassinated in another city just a month ago. Who's going to take her? The 12-year-old can't walk into the clinic and take a little 6-year-old to get medicine. Not possible. Finally, they were able to have an adult take her. She had an infection in her throat. 2 weeks with a fever. This little girl came in with circles under her eyes. So what I'm saying is, her coming in and then after every week creating trust, and we sit down and we're doing art with them and listening to music and talking about the love of Jesus and how he wants, this is a safe place. Cocoon, that's what it's called. To come in and be able to express what's on your heart. Good or bad, doesn't matter. But we're here to help you walk through it. And so, real quick before we end, I want you guys to just give me just an idea of why you chose what you chose out of the things, Callie.
Okay, I couldn't choose anything. I was like, what am I going to choose? And then I suddenly remembered a really funny story when I was little. I always had really long, really straight hair, and my neighbour, who was the same age as me, had really long ringlety hair, just beautiful. And she wanted my hair, and I wanted her hair. And then so one night I was washing my hair, and she said, "Let's colour your hair." So she got the hairbrush, and my hair was like down to here, like Jen's. And it was one of those hairbrushes that was all the way round, you know? So she put it at the bottom of my hair and she went like this, all the way up to the nape of my neck. And then of course it wouldn't
wouldn't
come down, you know. Her idea was to curl it, you know. And so we were like panicking, we were trying to get it. So then we called my brother, he couldn't get it out. So then my brother went downstairs and pretended he needed help with homework from my dad. And my dad came upstairs and so he tried, and then eventually we decided we had to tell my mum, and obviously my mum was just gonna like go completely crazy. And so the first thing she said to Rosemary was, Rosemary, what would your sister do? Because Rosemary's sister was a hairdresser. She said, she'd cut it all off.
Oh.
So Rosemary was banished to her house, and then my dad, bless him, he stood in the kitchen. I sat on a chair, and he cut every single plastic thing out of the brush. It took like, I think, nearly 3 hours until my hair was restored to. And the thing that touched me as I thought about that was just how my dad did that and helped me at that moment, but also with such tender care, and it just really spoke to me about how God does that with us, you know, that he looks at the little details and looks after us with tender care.
That's awesome. How about you, Raquel? Why did you choose?
Yes.
And I knew that you were going to choose a color.
Well,
I just knew it.
Well, I chose, let's see, I'm just trying to put together everything that you said, and it just making sense, you know, a lot of things. My mom always did decorations with flowers, and so I grew up seeing her with all sorts of, I wish I knew as much as she knows, you know, but colors and textures and sizes, and just observing her, how beautiful, you know, she would just bring all those different flowers together and put them together. We had a chance to help her a couple of times, not to do the arrangement, but to hand the flowers and cut and get the spinels, how do you call that? Thorns. But we learned. So I have this memory in my mind of growing up and seeing Mom doing that. I chose the colors randomly, but you know, as I was coloring and in spirit of prayer, and I think this can say, I've always, when I was a little girl, to me the world was pink, and everything was possible and happy, and you know, just truly believing that. And then you go through some things in life. Ooh, I don't want to cry. And the things are not pink anymore. And then I put purple because purple reminds me of pain, but also reminds me of Jesus. And He is the healer. And He is the King, and He's the royal one. And He's the one that can restore any pain that you have gone through your life. And then I put green because green is the color of hope. And you know, you go through Jesus and He gives us hope and a new life, a restored life, this hope that no human being can produce. It's just Him. And this is what I did. Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
He is faithful.
How about you, Isabel?
Well, I looked at the colouring in, but I was also thinking colouring in you do it on your own. So I did do a lot of colouring in. It was my way of sort of just introspective and being on my own, and didn't always seem to fit in. But the Play-Doh made me remember of how many fun moments I had with my cousins at my grandmother's house. And we didn't play with Play-Doh. We made mud biscuits and we made mud houses, and she was just so patient. My mom wasn't very patient, so I was always running off to Grand's house and getting in trouble for running off. But this just reminded me about that, you know, that I enjoyed that my Grand then would just take the hose and wash the mud away. We'd do it right at her door, you know. And at the same time, you constantly can create something new. You know, you make something and then you squash it all up and then you can reproduce. And I think there's so many times throughout my life that I wish I had do-overs. but you don't. You have one life, so you just carry on, do something, and just
Awesome. Thank you. How about for you, Nikki?
I also wasn't sure what to choose. I thought I did a lot of colouring when I was little as well, playing with Play-Doh as well. I thought to be different I would choose it. We did a lot of playing with the Lego, constructing things, and completely opposite to you, Hakel. My mother was totally not into colours and decoration and fabric. I don't know if it's like the Indian culture. It's very practical, and you know, you spend money on schooling, or you know, everything's very structured, and you don't spend any money on any frivolities of making your house look nice or beautiful. So if you go into an Indian person's home, you just never know. They may be really rich even though the lights are broken and everything looks really bad. It's just so practical. And the Lego reminded me of one of my favorite toys, which was this kind of house I had. It was quite a big house that I could walk around with, and inside it was like a school really, and I had lots of desks and little people, and you know, I loved playing with that with my brother and sister. And then it reminded me of, you know, structure, and how when I was 17 my father died, and then that just broke up our family structure and our routine and everything. And my mother moved to India and I was in the UK by myself, and just, you know, then I found Jesus, and he's the one who brought structure to my life again. So.
Thank you for sharing. Just as we close out, it reminds me of how with these kids we're helping them to also to have good memories, to bring back the good memories through play. That all the sad and very traumatic things that they've experienced is not all of their life. That there are good things, and that hope that we're talking about, there is hope to move on past this. There are people that they can trust, that love them, that will bring the love of Christ into their life. And this is just a way to bring it. Even if you didn't have all of this, somehow there's other ways to sit and play and draw in the sand, or use a stick, or take a walk, or ride a bike. Those kinds of things that would begin to connect you with that child, connect you with their life, so that, again, it's about trust. And then they begin opening up, and then you begin just praying, and God's healing begin to come into their life. And so, so thank you so much for coming and being a part of this. And you can close it out. Thank you.